What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Hisui Cup once again, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today, yes, you saw that correctly, we're looking at a triple dark poison team. We've got Shadow Drapion on the lead, Hisui and Qwilfish on the safe switch, and Overqwil in the closing position. Now, the way we're making this team work is we're using weird movesets on these Pokemon. For Shadow Drapion, we're running Ice Fang, and that Shadow bonus on top of it really makes it add up. Then we're running Qwilfish with Aqua Tail and Ice Beam for coverage against those grounds as well, because as you can tell, we're triple weak to ground. We need ground coverage on this team. And then Overqwil in the back as our closer is actually running its recommended moveset of Aqua Tail plus Shadow Ball. So a special shout out to the Legend Trader members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitton, and Moose Chew. And without further ado, let's hop into some battles. Alright, into the first match, we've got Rhyperior, a ground on the lead in the very first match, but we can actually stay in this matchup because Ice Fang is super effective, and we get to the Aqua Tail before my opponent is able to make it to a Rock Wrecker. So Aqua Tail will pick up the knockout unless my opponent kills the shield. Somehow that's a CMP tie. I must have lagged by a turn, or maybe my opponent waited a turn, but I don't think that's the case. They end up pivoting into a Spiritomb, maybe not expecting another Dark in the back, but in comes Qwilfish. Qwilfish could take a move here, but I'm going to shield this up because when it comes to pacing, that is not Spiritomb's strong set. So what we're going to do is we're going to shield the first. We're going to go for an Ice Beam now to do some meaningful damage. My opponent does let that go. Can I get to another Ice Beam before my opponent makes it to another move? The answer is no. That's fine, because this is only enough for a Shadow Sneak. So now I can overfarm here. After no shielding, go for the back-to-back Aqua Tails, and my opponent knows I'm at the back-to-back, so they let that go. Back in comes the Rhyperior. Rhyperior will instantly be met with a double super effective Aqua Tail, and what does my opponent want to do? They let that go. What's in the back? It is a Gust Staraptor. Look at the spice from my opponent, but here comes an Aqua Tail. This is neutral chip damage. My opponent maybe thought I was already at another Ice Beam, so they let that go. In comes Qwilfish. Overqwil. They see the Overqwil, and they just resign the match. Fantastic lead in the next match. We've got a Ghost, and we are triple dark on this team. They end up pivoting into a Drapion, and unfortunately for me, I don't have a good response to a Drapion. So I kind of have to just stay in this matchup with my own Drapion, go for an Aqua Tail after connecting with some Ice Fangs, and now that I'm at energy parity with the opponent, I can come in with the Qwilfish. So because Qwilfish also wins CMP in this matchup, if you didn't know, but now you do, because that's exactly what just happened here. My opponent can only go for the Aqua Tails, of course. It looks like 2 will be able to knock out, and they're already at the back-to-back, but I can survive 2 just barely from the Shadow, and I'm going to let them go. Back, oh, not back in, but in the back comes a Bastiodon. Now, this is where it's nice having Aqua Tail coverage on both of our back 2 Pokemon, because otherwise Bastiodon would be an absolute nightmare to see for this team. Especially when we've got 2 Poison Sting users and an Ice Fang user. But it's fine now because we've got Aqua Tail. They can go for a charge move. I can shield this up. Their pacing is so slow that I can basically make it to 3 Aqua Tails in the time they make it to a charge move. My opponent goes for the catch. They're unsuccessful, so they just resign the match. Dusknoir on the lead, another Ghost, will take it. Is my opponent going to stay in this matchup, or are they going to pivot? No, they're going to stay in. So that tells me they're likely weak to Drapion in the back. I'm now going to go for an Aqua Tail. They'll also do some solid chip, but my opponent knows this is not enough for a crunch, so they will let that go. My opponent now does have enough for the Dynamic Punch, so I will respect it with a shield. It is that Dynamic Punch. We get the full farm down after committing a shield, and what's going to be in the back? It is a Drapion of their own, but their Drapion is on Poison Sting, so with the residual energy, I'm able to outpace, make it to an Aqua Tail, and then same game plan as the last match, make it switch into my Qwilfish when we're at energy parity, or when they're on the exact 4 cycle for their Aqua Tail. They're technically at 8 right now. They have the back-to-back, but that's fine. Once again, I know I can live 2, so I'm going to let both go. And then I can just come in with my Quill, or just make it to the Aqua Tail. But the opponent actually comes in with a Gliscor in the back. I'm only able to make it to an Aqua Tail, but this will do some solid chip. Yeah, it actually puts the opponent into the basically yellow health range. I'm now able to come in with my Drapion, get the full Ice Fang farm down of the Gliscor, come out with energy loaded, and what's going to come back in? It's their Drapion once again. I'm going to throw the Aquatail right before they get to an Aquatail of their own. Is this going to pick up the knockout? No, the opponent's going to commit the shield, but that's fine because they are energy dry once they throw this as soon as they do, and that's fine because Overqwil will win the CMP tie, and that is game because Aquatail from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout, and Overqwil able to sweep that end game with one Aquatail. Thanks for the help, Overqwil. Another good lead, honestly. Charms are neutral here, but because we're running Ice Fang, that does some pretty sizable damage, and the opponent save switches into a Bibarel. Now, Bibarel is a tough Pokemon to face for this team, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect with a Crunch, and now I'm going to go for an Aquatail. My opponent is actually on Water Gun, interestingly enough. I don't know if that's intentional or a mistake, but that allows me to outpace. And I will just match shields here and go for the full farm down because I think that's my best plan of action because all of my charge moves are walled except for the Drapion with Crunch, and like fast moves are neutral in the back, but fast moves is resistant fast moves resisted, so on the lead, so that's a difficult Pokemon to face. But that said, we are able to take it out. Back in comes the Togekiss. We actually get to an Ice Beam that picks up the knockout on the Togekiss, and now is a Spiritomb in the back, which is a Sucker Punch user, and we have 2 Dark types remaining, so this game is over. In comes the Overqwil. I'm going to shield up a Rock Tomb here. They're already nearly at the back-to-back, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the Aquatail on a potential CMP tie with the opponent's next Rock Tomb, but they end up not throwing it, which kind of makes me look like an idiot because then I could have just gone for a Shadow Ball, and to be honest, I could have just survived a Rock Tomb, I think, from this range. Yeah, Overqwil doesn't have the best bulk, but it does survive that. I'm now going to pivot with the Aquatail loaded because I know I win CMP, so I'm just going to Ice Fang this down into Aquatail range, come back in with the Overqwil. Aquatail from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout, and we are able to take that win off of the back of another Aquatail from Overqwil. Okay, into next match, we've got Pachirisu on the lead. This is a very cool pick from my opponent. This is an XL heavy Pokemon, level 50, maybe even level 51. I'm not sure what it exactly gets up to, but it's a very bulky Pokemon, so neutrally in even shield scenarios, it does pretty darn well. Of course, its pacing is not great, and it's a mono electric moveset, so I'm going to connect with a Crunch, and then I'm going to instantly pivot into my Qwilfish to catch the next Thunder Punch here. We do survive that very comfortably, and I'm going to overfarm, looking for the Aquatail knockout. My opponent makes a catch onto their Spiritomb. Yes, I just got caught on by a 4-turn user. I don't know if they waited a turn or what, but yeah, that's what happened. Sorry, my cat is going crazy, but I'm able to make it to an Ice Beam on my Qwilfish. Can I make it to another Ice Beam? Just barely able to survive that last Sucker Punch. Does my opponent know this is enough for a second Ice Beam, or are they going to let this go? They are going to double shield their Spiritomb, but this is fantastic because this is a Dark type Pokemon that uses Sucker Punch that just double shielded against a triple Dark team, but of course they don't know that going in. Pachirisu does come back in. They make it to another charge move. I'm going to catch that onto my low HP Drapion. Not enough to pick up the knockout, which means they get one more Volt Switch through. Does that mean I can get the full farm down? Not quite, but I know this is only enough for another Thunder Punch, so I will let this go because I still don't know what's in the back. So I do get the full Poison Stick farm down. I basically just have to watch for a catch here. My opponent is unable to go for it. Maybe their switch timer wasn't quite up yet, but Shadow Ball from this range will one-shot the Drifblim. Back in comes the Spiritomb. Yes, they banked a move. Does it matter? Absolutely not, because we can just shield this up, make it to the Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball from this range, even with the debuff, will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Spiritomb, and we are able to take that win. Okay, into next match, Drapion into Gliscor. Does my opponent respect the Ice Fang coverage? They do not. They're actually on Sand Attack themselves. But in comes another Spiritomb. Yeah, Spiritomb is absolutely everywhere because there's so many Drifblims and there's so many Dusknoirs that it makes sense that this Pokemon is absolutely everywhere. But it also has a surprisingly good matchup into the Dark Poisons unless a bunch of shields are committed, and that's not really a good position you want to be in when you're in a dominant matchup. But that said, we can make it to an Ice Beam. This will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Spiritomb. and they are going to let that go. Back in comes Gliscor. Gliscor will instantly be met with an Aqua Tail. This is super effective damage, but it probably wouldn't be enough to pick up the knockout. But my opponent does commit the shield anyways, and now I'm going to pivot into my Drapion because I don't care. I've got an triple A team, so I'm just going to grab that last shield from my opponent, and I know I can survive an Aerial Ace. So if they go for an Aerial Ace, I will be able to live it. They do. Now in comes an Abomasnow. Can I get to a charge move? No, but that's okay because I still have Qwilfish for a catch available, and I can just come in with my Overqwil. These poison stings are super effective, and they're adding up quite a bit. They're now at the back-to-back charge move, so what I'm going to do is shield the first. I'm going to anticipate the back-to-back, but my opponent doesn't throw immediately, and instead they overfarm, but they realize I would get to a charge move on the Qwilfish, so they do end up throwing their energy. That allows me to overfarm ever so slightly on the Overqwil, pick up the knockout with the Aqua Tail, and I'm already at the back-to-back, so my opponent knows they no longer have a win con, so they just resign the match. Absolutely terrible lead in the next match. Yes, Lucario, and a bullet punch Lucario at that. What do we do against Lucario with a team that has no fast move pressure into steals whatsoever? Here's what we do. We pivot into Qwilfish. We outpace to the charge move. They're forced to let that go. I end up shielding back. It's only a power-up punch, which is pretty unfortunate. But in comes Spiritomb, and they already know that they're up a shield. So what I'm going to do here is bait with the Aqua Tail, and then if my opponent shields this, I'm going to go for the Ice Beam. And Ice Beam ends up being thrown on the CMP tie, winning CMP. That is massive. Are they willing to double shield their Spiritomb? No, they are not. They're going to let that go. That does some very solid chip. That puts it into Ice Fang, farm down range, and that's pretty much all that we need. They show us that they're actually on Shadow Sneak, which is pretty interesting. But I know no matter what charge move they get to here, I can survive this on the Drapion. Even if it's a Rock Tomb, it's going to be uncomfortable, but we will be able to live it. In the yellow health range, I'm now at an Aqua Tail again against Lucario, so I can throw this right away. They end up letting that go. That picks up the knockout. What's in the back? It's a Drifblim, and now Drifblim will be met with the Overqwil. Overqwil unable to make it to a Shadow Ball before they make it to the Icy Wind, so I settle for an Aqua Tail on the CMP tie. My opponent does let that through. I think that is the right play for my opponent, but even with a Icy Wind shielded, we just have such a pacing advantage, and Astonish, it's a good charge move, or a good fast move in terms of energy generation, but when it comes, or sorry, in terms of damage, but not in terms of energy generation as much. So we're able to outpace, make it to another Aqua Tail. Doesn't quite pick up the knockout, but we can snipe with the Drapion. My opponent maybe anticipated that snipe, or just went for the charge move right away because they got so low. And we catch it on the Drapion, and we are able to take that win. Okay, into the next match, mirror leads, but is my opponent on Ice Fang? Unlikely. They show us right away that they're on Poison Sting, and they are going to stay in this matchup, and that's fine. We can take one Aqua Tail, and then we're going to do the exact same thing we've done. Oh, they end up going for a Crunch, which is a little bit strange because that lets me overfarm a little bit more, but now here comes an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will connect, puts them into the red health range. They end up pivoting into a Spiritomb. Spiritomb, obviously a fantastic switch for us because we are triple dark on this team. Able to make it to an Ice Beam before my opponent makes it to a Rock Tomb. They're going to shield that up. I probably should have baited, but it is what it is. It doesn't really matter because the more shields that are used in this matchup, the better for the Qwilfish. So able to commit one shield. Here comes a Aqua Tail bait, I guess, just because I know that one Ice Beam wouldn't be enough to pick up the knockout. And I will throw the second Aqua Tail on the CMP tie with my opponent's next charge move. And now, because I don't really need switch, I can just let this go, get an energy lead on either of my back Pokemon, and they are energy dry. You see me going for the Elam trick there, trying to get a 0-turn switch because I was getting 1-turn lag so often in these games. I actually did it in a lot of these matchups, but I just cut it out because it's obviously not pretty. But in comes a Froslass in the back, and now Froslass will be met with a Crunch. We grab that final shield from my opponent. Can Overqwil survive an avalanche? That's pretty much all this comes down to. Overqwil is very glassy. It actually ends up only being a triple axle. Gonna wait the turn. I see the Powder Snow go through, so I know I can full send the Shadow Ball. This will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Froslass. Back in comes a Spiritomb, but Spiritomb is going to get outpaced. Only 3 more Poison Stings to an Aqua Tail, and Aqua Tail picks up the knockout on the Spiritomb, and we are able to take that win. Into the, I think, final match of the video, another Shadow Gliscor. This is a fantastic lead. Ice Fangs, double super effective here. My opponent stays in for 3 of them, ends up pivoting into Spiritomb, and they're so slow on that swap that I'm going to connect with an Aqua Tail. This will do some okay chip, and now in comes Qwilfish. Qwilfish can't survive any one charge move here, but I am going to go for the Aqua Tail right away before they're able to debuff my attack, because that might put it in Poison Sting farm down range, or even if I have to throw, that's fine. I end up going to commit the shield. They end up going for a Shadow Ball, which is a bit of an odd play, but that lets me get to the full Poison Sting farm down. Are they going to come back in with a Gliscor? No, they're going to come in with another Bullet Punch Lucario. You've got to be kidding me. Another Steel type. This is absolutely terrible for this team, but fortunately, I'm nearly at 3 Aqua Tails by the time they are going to get to their first charge move. So they're going to commit the shield. Here comes another Aqua Tail. My opponent knows I'm already there, so they end up throwing their energy, but that's fine because wasted energy is absolutely perfect for me here. All I have to do is come in with my Overqwil. I'll be able to outpace. So here comes an Aqua Tail. Is my opponent going to double commit shields here? They are. And now I just kind of have to watch for a snipe here of their Gliscor, because Gliscor, it doesn't have a move yet, but it is pretty close. So I'm going to shield up the second charge move. They end up getting to yet another charge move, but I think this is only enough for a power up punch. But now that we've shielded 2 of them, the power up punch actually picks the knockout. Can we get the full Ice Fang farm down? It's going to be close. My opponent ends up pivoting into the Gliscor. They think I'm going to get there, so I'm going to throw the charge move before they get to their charge move of their own. In comes the Lucario. They get Ice Fang farmed down, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, despite seeing steals and barrels, this team was able to pull out some absolutely incredible wins. Obviously, the Dark Poison typing is super strong in this meta, but would I recommend this team for climbing? Absolutely not. I had a lot of fun running this team, and I thought it was really unique. I can only imagine what my opponents thought when they saw my line, but it was still surprisingly better than I expected, and I think that's what's going to go in the titles, because this team did far better than I expected, and I'll give kudos to that, because it was pretty much off the back of Ice Fang Drapion, and honestly, the spamminess of Qwilfish and Overqwil came in clutch quite a few times. I mean, I connected with quite a few Shadow Balls and Ice Beams, and that was really like important for those matchups. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.